Hello and welcome back to the workshop, and in today's episode Matt's going to say the same thing to the camera about 20 times. No, but in all seriousness, it probably takes me a good 20 tries to get one good take. I don't know what it is, but talking to a little grey box is just unbelievably difficult. I'd much rather shape metal. It is by far easier to do. Like, for some inexplicable reason, just speaking to a lens just becomes super difficult the second that red light flashes. Anyway, today we're going to be carrying on with the Cobra. So what we did last week was we finished off those last few panels for the rear half of the front clam, and this week we're going to be welding them on. Now, before I can actually get to welding them on, I've got to make sure that everything here is as good as I can get it. As I weld on more pieces, everything here sort of just gets locked in place. Now, you can adjust it, but it just becomes more difficult. Every edge is captured by something that's welded onto it, and the more pieces you weld on, the less access you have to those initial welds, usually. So that's what we're going to be doing this episode. Alright, so I mentioned we got to make sure everything fits as good as possible, but one thing that does not fit as good as it could possibly is the center of the bonnet right here. And what's happening is that it wants to bend that way more than it wants to bend this way. So although the shape is correct and there's the right amount of stretch and shrink in the panel and things, it's just trying to bend up too much, so it's pulling the two halves together. So I need to get it to bend that way more, and that poses a bit of a challenge, being that it's such a low crown panel. If I were to just pull down on it as I pull it back through the wheel, I think I'd probably end up putting more shape in the panel, too much stretch, and then I'd have to work all of that out as well. So I think what I'm going to do is take the rubber band and wheel it through the wheel. And then one little issue we're going to fix before we get to that is that there's a little too much stretch. I don't know if you can see it popping backwards there, just in that little section of the bonnet here. And that's from me wheeling these welds flat. When I ran it off the panel, I ran a little bit like that. So I'll do a couple shrinks there quickly first, and then we'll wheel up the bonnet and see how it goes. Alright, so as I'm sure you just saw, I spent a little bit of time tweaking the fitment of both panels, making sure they flow well and they fit. Now that they're pretty close to as good as I can get them, and from the light I'm seeing there, looks alright from here. Yeah, now we can start fitting them up, trimming them to size, tack them together, and run a little weld. Alright, so last time you guys saw, we had just finished welding in the reverses and then just test fitted the bonnet. Since then, I've gone ahead and just cleaned up those welds, saved you guys from having to watch me spend hours of just not much happening. So since then, we've gone ahead and just fitted up these panels on the sides here, scribed the lines, but I had a stroke of genius. Before I go ahead and actually cut that side, while I've still got these clico holes, I'll go ahead and trim up the other side as well. Well, mark it out. Then we can take the bonnet off and trim it up in one shot, because if I end up tacking that one on and I can't get that side back on, then there's no way to mark that side out. So if I do it all in one, then hopefully when it's time for it to come off, it might be a little bit more of a pain, but it won't have to go back on. Flip it around, do a 180, put that side at the bottom, and then we can stand it up.
Alright.
If you put it down, it's
What a thing of beauty.
Alright, so now that we've proved we can actually get it off, next step is to put it back on and start working on these flares at the rear. I realize I should actually complete the weld first, but I'm a little too excited to see what this thing looks like. Alright guys, so there we go. We did eventually manage to get the nose off. And I gotta say, it looks pretty damn good. Now...
Nice.
Seriously? Now, a couple people have asked if it's gonna be any bigger, and in a perfect world, it's really only 1.5 mils bigger. But I gotta say, it is beautiful, and I am super proud of how it came out. Now, looking at this bonnet, you've got pretty good representation of all the stages. We've got panels tacked together, we've got welds that haven't been finished off, welds that have been finished off, filed away, sanded away, and then eventually polished up. Anyways, there's still a lot of work to be done on the bonnet. Next step will be finishing off the welds, and then after that we've got to cut the nose off the original so we can go ahead and tip all the edges around the bonnet so we can get nice good gapping. Now there's a lot of work to be done on this still, but there's still a lot of work to be done in the shop in general. We've got a lot more content coming and a lot more future projects. So if you enjoy the style of content we're doing, please like and subscribe and follow along for the next one.